Hello and welcome to the Story Engine podcast. My name is Kyle Gray, and today on the show we have Akshay Nanavanti. Akshay is the founder and author of Fearvana, turning the negative, challenging emotions that are all over us, especially as high performers, and changing our relationship with them to turn them into sources of strength, energy, and clarity. Today, we're going to talk about his process on exactly how he does it and learn from stories when he needed it most. So, without any further ado, let's hand it over to Akshay. Akshay Nanavanti, welcome to the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you for having me, brother. Honored to be here.
I am excited because when I started out as an entrepreneur, I was enchanted by the ideas of adventure and being able to build a business that creates a lot of freedom. And you almost did it in reverse, where you've created a lot of freedom and you're building a business around it. And you have some incredible stories and adventures to share. And I'm excited to share some of those on the podcast with us. But to give our audience just a little bit of a sample of what you're all about, can you tell us who you are and how you're showing up in the world today?
Sure. Who I am, I guess to summarize it, I'm an author, speaker, adventurer, and entrepreneur. My whole ethos and how I show up in the world today is around this idea of Fearvana, a concept I created that is about embracing fear, using struggle as an access point to bliss and even enlightenment. Suffering, as you know, is an all-encompassing part of the human experience. It's universal. We're all going to endure it. We're all going to face it, whether we seek it or not. And I have been blessed to pursue some very intense challenges in some of the most extreme environments on the planet, both without and within, to find new ways to confront suffering and build mental weapons for not only myself, but to help others navigate suffering. From joining the Marines, spending time in Iraq as an infantry Marine, where one of my jobs was to walk in front of vehicles looking for bombs, to then struggling with PTSD, depression, and addiction after the war, to now running ultra marathons, spending 17 days alone in darkness and 100 days alone in the polar regions, including what I most recently did, which was a world first expedition dragging a 420-pound sled for 500 miles over 60 days alone in Antarctica. So I've played on the edges, and now I bring that wisdom back to help others.
I love that. And one of my most used, most recited personal mantras came from a moment. It was probably my freshman year in high school, and I was taking a class, a very strange class called Japanese theater. And the teacher and professor would make us meditate every morning to start the class, and he would have us kneel on a concrete floor. And he said, over time, you will either learn to find comfort in this, or you will learn to accept the discomfort. And the phrase accept the discomfort has stood with me for almost 20 years now.
Awesome.
In understanding exactly what you've just said. And it's something I've come back to. And I think our ability to accept discomfort, uncertainty, challenge, or pain and make a meaningful story out of it, that is one of the core skills to getting anything we want. A lot of people here listening in are entrepreneurs, but it's not, it's anything that you would want out of your life is a factor of your ability to synthesize that. And I think it's so foundational and important what you're doing and talking about.
Oh, thank you. Absolutely. And what a gift to have a teacher at such a young age instill that mindset into you young students and start embracing suffering. It's the most important skill to master. And if you can do that to kids at a younger age, that's a real gift.
So I'm curious, you were doing a lot of adventures when you were younger in the military. You had a dark point. What was one of the first things how did things shift for you to realize, oh man, what I'm going through right now, I can harness this for my own good and the good of others? And how did you start to change your story from addiction and darkness to embracing this in an entirely new way?
The turning point for me was this moment, rock bottom moment, where after 5 days of binge drinking liters of vodka, I woke up one morning, walked over to the kitchen, and was literally seconds away from slitting my own wrists. And that moment, it jarred me out of this pattern I had developed where I would drink for days on end, sober up for days, sometimes weeks, even months, and then drink again. Just the fact that I even considered taking my own life was pretty shocking to me. And that's when I realized something really needed to change. And so I started delving deep into neuroscience, into psychology, into spirituality, and to reframe my own relationship to trauma, to suffering, to the nature of human suffering. And that's what led me down the path of then writing my own book, Fearvana, and helping people. As I said, it's the most important skill to master. And there's a chapter in the book called The Gift of Suffering. And so what I wanted to do with the book was to help people combat the demonization of fear, of stress, anxiety, suffering, pain, adversity. Even these words, they don't conjure up positive feelings for anybody. Right? When I've done talks around the world, I ask people, when you hear these words, do you think of them as positive or negative? Universally, across cultures, nobody thinks of them as positive. And that's the fundamental goal. I first combated within myself, which led me down this path of now seeking out new edges as a frontier to open new doors into the soul, but to then help others navigate their suffering as well and find the beauty in it. Because as you said, when you can alchemize your pain, you become bulletproof, you become indestructible to whatever not only life throws your way, but to whatever goals you are pursuing as well.
Could you give us a little preview of this process? Do you have like step one, step two, step three of how we go about this?
I would say, first step is embracing what is. So I kind of have like if I had to summarize it in a deeper way, this three-step mantra, three steps. Be with what is, but do not be consumed by what is. Be consumed by what is, but do not be. I actually haven't shared this in a little while, so I've lost my flow. I'm working on my next book right now, so I got confused here on my own step.
Hmm.
But the idea is first to be with it and then to control it. So this is what it is. Be with what is, but do not be controlled by what is. Control what is, but do not be consumed by what is. Be consumed by what is, but do not be defined by what is. So that's the three steps. First one is embrace, then use, and then surrender. So embrace, control, and surrender. Embrace suffering. That's first step is developing the mindset that fear and suffering and struggle is not bad. Because the reality is there's no bad or good emotions. There's no bad or good experiences. They're only emotions, they're only experiences. It's up to us to decide what we do with them. Anything can be channeled into something good. So this is first just being exposed to the idea like this. I mean, people have read me when they read my book saying just the idea that fear and stress and anxiety were not bad. That alone can be transformational because it's a concept you've never heard. Now you say, okay, when I go through this emotion of fear, stress, anxiety, I'm not going to resist it. I'm not going to fight it. I'm just going to be with it and accept it. And then there's tools to do this as well. I'm happy to go into if you like, but to then build on it, next step would be now you use it, you control it. So, okay, I'm feeling the fear. Let me channel it. Let me access it. Let me embrace it. Let me actually leverage it as a mechanism. So as an example, when I was writing my book, Fear, I was scared of Fearvana. When I was writing the book, I was scared of writing a book on fear. I was scared. What if people judge it? What if people think it's stupid? All that kind of stuff. And so I literally would write down, what am I scared of? And I would write this down on a list. Why am I scared? What's the worst case scenario? And then I would write down, okay, if this is the worst case scenario, how do I prepare for it? One of my other mantras is when you engage it, fear propels you to prepare. Fear propels you to prepare, meaning you can now use fear as a tool. Everything I do is scary. Going to Antarctica for 60 days alone was terrifying, and it should be scary. If you're not scared, something's wrong with you. So I use that fear to prepare. And then finally, step three is when you get more advanced down the path, is your ability to no longer control it, but you can surrender to it because you're so aligned, both within and without, mind, body, spirit, and mission, that you can simply surrender to it, and you don't need to use consciousness to engage the emotion, the thought, the feeling. It automatically gets used on the path when you are on it. And this is something that can only be fully grasped when you experience it. But I've had moments like this, whether I'm spending 17 days alone in darkness or in Antarctica, where it just flows through me and it becomes a tool to help me move forward on the mission where I don't have to control it. I can surrender to it. So it's kind of accept, control, and surrender is the three steps. And there's all many frameworks within each one of those to help you do that, to use the tool, to accept the tool, and then, final step to simply surrender to it and let it become you because it will flow through you and serve you on the mission.
Yeah. What are the What are some of the biggest symptoms of not accepting or being on the other end of this? How do the problems of demonizing my fear and demonizing my negative emotions for most people, how do those manifest in our lives?
A great question. So all unnecessary suffering comes from resisting or clinging to what is. All unnecessary suffering. And I'll go back to what I shared about the two darts for embracing what is. So Buddha said we're all stabbed by the two darts of suffering. The first dart is the one we don't control. So right now, if somebody came into this room with a gun, I'm going to feel fear. I'm not choosing it. It's a subconscious response to a stimuli that, based on past patterns and learnings that I have learned, is dangerous, is a threat to my well-being. So I feel this response of fear. That's the first dart. The second dart is when I resist it or I cling to it. And this means how this shows up, and it's not so conscious, but when I work with clients as a coach, you'll hear people say things like some version of, I should not feel this way. They resist it. Like as an example, I was working with one client who every time he would sit down to write on his computer, he'd feel anxious. There would be a physiological symptom, sweaty palms, and inevitably he would retreat. He would go on the bed to watch Netflix. Now, most people he had come to before me would help him get rid of the anxiety. And I said, we're not going to do that right now because the brain has created a mechanism that says, in simplistic terms, computer equals anxiety. So how it showed up was literally he would have this dialogue in his head. At first, it wasn't conscious, but we brought it to the surface where he was like, I'm a piece of shit. I shouldn't feel this way. What's wrong with me? Why am I getting so anxious? Some version of that we go through where we resist it. And as a result, we go do the thing, like binge watching Netflix. I had another client who was traveling to Iceland on his own, and he would hear all the crazy things I do, and he'd be like, what's wrong with me? Why am I scared just going to Iceland? He was going on a relaxing vacation, but it was his first vacation alone. So he was like, why am I feeling scared? What's wrong with me? Some version of that, as opposed to saying, it's okay to be scared. I've never done this before. It's okay. I'm going to accept it. Then you can say, in the case of going to Iceland, why am I, I'll break it down. Here's what I'm scared of. Then you could prepare for it. In the case of my other client who would get anxious while typing on the computer, what we did is we would label the emotion. And when you label the emotion, so I'm feeling fear, neuroscience has shown it reduces activity in the emotional part of the brain and increases activity in the prefrontal cortex. Essentially what that means is it creates a space between the emotion and you as the feeler of that emotion. In that space, you can react instead of responding. So what we'd have him do is label the emotion and then say, I'm just going to type for 30 seconds. I don't care if anything comes out. 30 seconds, that's it. Then 30 seconds becomes 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Well, now it's an hour. And next thing you know, you change even the first start response. The first start no longer becomes anxiety. So that's how it shows up is the resisting or like clinging is usually showing up is as in I cling to happiness, I cling to comfort. So I'm going to resist the other side of that spectrum of pain, of sadness, and inevitably you'll suffer. But when you stop resisting or clinging, you free yourself from all unnecessary suffering. And that's the key. If there's one thing you take away from this, it's anybody listening is this right here. Acceptance of isness is the key to freedom from all unnecessary suffering. And even on
Mhm.
expedition, I would literally say this when conditions were really tough, like soft snow, it makes it very, very hard to drag a 400-pound sled. Now it's very easy to be like, I wish the snow was harder. Instead, I would say, thank you for these perfect conditions because they're perfect. They can't be anything other than what they already are. So when you accept the perfection of what is, and it can't be anything other than what it is because that's what it is, if that makes sense. So instead of wishing for better weather, better conditions, I don't like the politics, whatever the thing is, especially all the things you can't control, which is most of our lives, you free yourself from unnecessary suffering and then you can create your own reality on top of that.
I love it. Let me just to draw out the symptoms of the problems that I'm really looking for here. Let me echo back a few things. So what I imagine somebody going through this process and the problem side is they have very low energy because they're over gripping on so much life or all of the unnecessary suffering.
Mhm.
They probably also have no energy because they don't have anything to look forward to. Because of the second problem, it's hard to get clear on your life or know what to do because your emotions are clouding and directing your choices,
Mhm.
and which means you're distracting and numbing
Yeah.
because of those emotions, and then fulfilling a prophecy of some sort and then judging yourself.
Yeah. Good, great,
And
great.
so it sounds
Breakdown.
like it's like the cycle of things. And
Absolutely.
if we were to like just translate those into what we're looking for, it's high energy, and excitement.
Clarity. Yeah, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we do have clarity on what we want and how to get it.
Yeah. And then like,
And
yeah,
then,
you're able to, whatever the, regardless of the emotion, you're good, able to be in action towards the pursuit of your purpose. And sometimes being in action means stillness, but stillness is not the same as doing nothing. It's conscious. You're doing it consciously. So it's not retreating, it's conscious stillness, if that's the necessary.
but the secret here is that we feel safe, whichever the thing is. I
Hmm.
feel safe in the choosing of action. I feel safe in the choosing of stillness. And I know that's what's best for me.
Yeah,
Instead of the distracting and numbing, it's the safety in the choice that we make, which then frees up a lot of energy and time to go enjoy the rest of our lives.
absolutely. Absolutely. Good point. Yeah.
All right. So if we were to talk about like what makes this process, not necessarily where we go, the end destination, but how we get there. What is unique? What is better? How is your process of Fearvana the better pathway to get to where we were just describing?
To get to where we want to go, wherever that
Yeah.
there may be.
Yeah.
I think the key unique differentiator, I would say, on my process is that it's about both peak performance and inner peace. I believe you can have both. And often they come at a price. Often you'll see people have one or the other. So people who are just being still, they're not necessarily chasing a big goal, or people who are chasing big goals, it comes at a cost of your mental well-being. And the fundamental core sort of philosophy under everything I do, and even this is what Fearvana is a concept that I call the paradox of oneness. And what this is the realization that the opposites that exist within the human experience, which are, for example, pain and pleasure, fear and nirvana, ego, humility, contentment, discontentment, life and death, masculine, feminine, so on and so forth. We often demonize one side as bad, but the paradox of oneness is the realization that neither side is bad, that they are not truly opposites, that they coexist, and they are two expressions of the same whole. And coming back to the point about accepting and embracing what this process is, and what I help people do is to not demonize any side of any duality, and you master this mindset. True spiritual mastery is the ability to embrace two opposites as part of the same whole. And that's what this is about. And by doing that, you can not only chase higher heights of peak performance at whatever your craft is, you can achieve deeper depths of inner peace as well. And that's the rarity that I help people do is go chase bigger goals, play at the highest levels, but also not at the cost of your peace, your inner peace.
Yeah. Okay. I want to move on to exploring some specific moments in your life that reflect what we've just discussed. And
Hmm.
I'm certain that you have many. And even if you have many of these things and many of these options, the ideal right now is to pick one and find a specific moment in time and space that reflects these. So I'm going to read some of this back to you, and I want you to
Okay.
feel in your body where this is occurring. Then we'll take our next step. So resisting and clinging to what is, judging yourself. I shouldn't feel this way. I am a piece of shit. What's wrong with me? Resisting. You have low energy, over gripping on your life, creating unnecessary suffering, and you have nothing to look forward to. It's hard to get clear on what you want because the emotions are just clouding your choices and directing you to distraction and numbing. And you fulfill yourself and you find yourself back in a spiral. Again, when Akshay, did you feel most like this?
One of them was definitely the moment I mentioned on that rock bottom, but I think a more recent moment was actually when I sobered up but then broke my sobriety. I had
Mm.
gone through a very challenging divorce and I broke my sobriety. And once again, beating myself up. What's wrong with you, piece of shit? All of that inner dialogue, resisting the experience, resisting the pain of that divorce, trying to escape it, trying to numb it. That was one that more recently stands out. And I took a different path to solve that problem than I did in the past.
But before we solve the problem, this is good. This is juicy. Exactly where we want to be. When did you say I'm a piece of shit? Did you say it like you went for the bottle and you said I'm a piece of shit, or the bottle was down now and then you slowed down and the judgments came? When were the judgments happening?
They weren't so much when I went for the bottle, it was after. Either like
Hmm.
the next day, when after passing out and I wake up, and that would then hit, and then to
Hmm.
escape that, I would drink again. My benders would go on for days on end. And then after the bender would end, 3 to 5 days usually was what they would go. That's when the dialogue would rise up pretty in a pretty all-consuming way.
Describe your home or the room that you were in waking up after the bender.
It was at my home in Jersey where I lived
Hmm.
with my now ex-wife.
So she was gone
She was
by
gone.
then. So it was an empty home, relatively.
Yeah,
Mhm.
empty. So there was a lot of memories of her, and it was now empty, just me.
What was a memory, like a specific picture frame or a plant, or what was something that really stung?
Everything in the house was elements of her, from the red wall to the furniture. Every element was, I think,
How
I might
long had it been since you gave into this and you gave into this moment? How long of a streak did you have before that?
like before.
So you were sober for a certain amount of
Oh,
time, and you
like that
thought you
too.
had this under control, and then we found ourselves here again.
Yeah, I think it was 2 plus years. I'm really bad with time frames. I'll tell you
That's okay. That's okay. You're doing great, but you're very good at space and finding us spaces to be in as well as times. And not everybody does as well as you.
Mm.
Okay. Well, sometime after that, you again had high energy and excitement for a vision. You took yourself through this process again and you were renewed in this. You had clarity of what you want and meaning and how to get it. And you were able to pursue action and bring your life into alignment again. And there's probably like a little ways down this recommitting to this process where you were rewarded and you felt this victory again in this connection. Do you have a specific moment that you were like, wow, I'm so glad this still works for me. I'm so glad for going through this process and even creating this process?
Mm. So after this happened, what the big change for me was, I'd done a lot of hard things at this point, right? But what I realized is I had not confronted stillness. So I went into 7 days of darkness, into a 7 day darkness retreat. And I'd say the culmination of that was actually the moment coming out of the darkness. First time I saw light after 7 days in a dark room. I'd never seen the world look that bright. I literally had tears coming down my face. And in that moment, I remember feeling so much gratitude for all the suffering I experienced in my life, every bit of it, because in a very visceral, concrete way, I saw that you cannot fully appreciate the luminosity of the light without having first been in the dark. And that idea was no longer an abstraction, it was concrete, because I saw the light in not just a figurative way, right? I'd say that was the darkness obviously revealed a lot within the stillness of that space, but the culmination of it was when I first saw the light after 7 days in darkness. And what drove me to the darkness was the fact that I had broken my sobriety, and I didn't like that about myself.
Can you describe one of the objects that you saw for the first time in this brightness?
I was in Germany, and it was seeing the Black Forest, the trees in Germany. They took me out of the room with the mask on to protect me from the light, guided me downstairs. I was sitting on the deck, and they said, "When you're ready, take off the mask." And it was trees and nature sitting on this deck. It was somewhat chilly. I had a blanket, orange blanket around me, and just seeing the trees and the sunlight. It was heavenly.
Wonderful. Would you like to hear your story?
I would love to. This was really fascinating. Yeah.
Thank you. I can't believe I found myself here again. I'm such a piece of shit. I wake up after having broken a promise to myself that I've made so many times, breaking my sobriety after several years as a result of a challenging divorce that broke my heart and broke my soul. I wake up in this house where my wife has left, and everything from the red walls, the furniture, the photos on the wall remind me of her. I'm such a piece of shit. Why do I feel like this? Why do I keep doing this? I thought I had this all figured out by now. And I'm wondering how I found myself here time after time after time. This place of darkness and of frustration and of hopelessness that has almost led me to taking my life before. I thought I had this figured out. I should be farther along by now. And I realize in this moment that something needs to change. That it's not just drinking or any of these individual habits, but there's something about me that's happening that keeps putting myself in this. And I needed to figure out a different way to respond. In my path of reinventing my life and reconnecting with myself, I decided to sign up for a 10-day darkness retreat where I would be slowing down, depriving all of my senses and just confronting the stillness. And in that darkness, I had lots of time to think, considering the balance between performance and peace, this impossible balance, and how to have both, to find a way to both direct my life in the direction that I wanted and surrender to both the good things and the challenges that inevitably come up. I didn't want my problems to go away because I knew they never would, but I wanted confidence in my ability to handle what comes and to feel the gift in everything. And after a few days of deep reflection and deep work, I can remember exiting the room of darkness with still a blindfold on and being guided down, and having the guides remove my blindfold and looking out over the world for the first time, looking at the Black Forest in Germany. It looked so bright, and tears were coming down my face because I realized for the first time that you can't appreciate the light without the darkness. And I think about all of the moments of pain, of challenge, of lostness, of addiction that I've encountered. And I realize that it was so worth it. I feel gratitude because that's what's led me here. And as I look out over the forest and see all of these trees, I think about all of the people, the leaders, the achievers, the family members out there that are spending so much of their time and energy, just like I was, in unnecessary suffering. And I realized that it was my life's work to bring this light to the world, to show the world the process of Fearvana and how you can use it to create your own light in the darkness. And that's what I'm here to teach you today.
Damn, brother. Wow. That was beautiful. Wow.
Thank you.
That was really powerful.
Are these moments or stories that you've shared before? I know you're a great speaker. Have you done anything quite like this setup before?
Not that setup for sure. Not, especially not. I've shared a lot about the first time that I was in that pit, but I haven't gone deep into, um, it's briefly come up, but definitely not in the way we did here, about going, when I broke my sobriety and went back into the pit. That has not come up that way, and certainly not in the way you told it about leading to the darkness and the realizations that came from that and the way you framed that.
It's such a rich place to me for the story because of the element of I did it again.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really am a scoundrel.
yeah. I didn't,
And the possible conversation that you can have with yourself in that moment of
mm,
being able to, what we do, we create stories and moments like this in service to our clients so that we can paint the language that they're saying, which you know very well. All of
mm,
the judgments that are going through their head, we can repeat and go through our head in our moments because it's reflects. And I deeply relate. Like I certainly relate to the first moment, but the moment of betraying yourself again after
mm,
doing so much
mm.
is so rich
Yeah, yeah.
and I think different than the kind of,
The first.
it's not quite a rags to riches, but it has that like rock bottom to top.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, that's such a good point, and that's really valuable that like I like the way you put that, you betrayed yourself and that's what it felt like for sure.
Yeah.
And to go back into that after kind of rising out of it and to
Yeah.
tumble back down into the pit, right? To go deep into the abyss, yeah, and to share it in that way. It's very, very powerful. I never shared it that way.
Well, thank you for going through this process with me today.
Thank
Where
you.
can we go to learn more about you, to grab the book or get on the waiting list for the next one? And do you have any closing thoughts for us today?
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah, I'll jump to closing toss. Nice. But you can find me at Fearvana on Instagram, Fearvana. The book is on Amazon, paperback Kindle, fearvana.com. I have a lot of tools, resources on there to help guide people through pain. And the next book I'm currently working on, that's why my mind was consumed in some of those new frameworks that I slipped a little earlier in some of the earlier ones that I've been worked on in the first book. But as far as parting thoughts, the key thing is kind of reiterating what we shared, that when you face whatever arises within, be with it. As simple as it may sound, I truly believe that the greatest fear in the human condition is stillness. If there's one like magic silver bullet when people ask me in a podcast or a talk, one thing to go do after you listen to me is go sit still by yourself in a dark room, lock yourself in the closet, do it for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it may be. It should be scary. It will be scary, especially if you're new to stillness, but do that. And I can't recommend that enough. That's the parting thought, is go be still with yourself, and you'll start opening doors that have never been opened before. And once you open those doors, you can bring to the surface whatever's within you and then use it instead of being a slave to it.
Amazing. Akshay Nanavanti, thank you so much for joining us today on the Story Engine podcast.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.